Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the pre-launch James Webb Space Telescope Q&A session. We're here with Deputy Project Manager at the NASA IV&V program for the James Webb Space Telescope project. We're here with Rich Finley. Rich, thank you so much for joining today and sharing what you know about the telescope. I think everybody over the last couple of weeks especially are getting really excited and anxious about the launch of this mission, and we're looking forward to having it be a success. So thank you for taking time to be here and to talk to us.
Certainly. Glad to be here.
So I'm just going to start with a question here that I've received. And so question is, why does James Webb Space Telescope need to be in space? That's a really good question.
Sure. A telescope on the ground would be susceptible to clouds and other atmospheric interruptions. So a space telescope can be outside of our atmosphere, and it can be in a place that is has a more clear view of space, of the sky, or the environment around it. So one thing that offers is that you can take a picture and keep the aperture open for a very long time. So you can take a very, very long exposure, long picture. And what that does is it allows time for more light to come into the instruments, to the cameras. And therefore, you can see very, very faint light that is too hard to see normally without any interruption. So basically, what it does is it lets us see deeper into space with more accuracy. And another thing is that, for the James Webb Space Telescope, it can see in the near infrared spectrum, which is basically heat. And so it can't be, it should never be pointed towards the sun. Here on ground, if you have a telescope, there's times where it might be facing the sun, and that would be very bad for the telescope. So that's why telescope needs to be in space. This telescope needs to be in space, and that's why the mission plan for it to be in space versus on the ground.
Okay, so I have another question here that someone asked. It's JWST took a lot of collaboration, of course, and so the question is, what was one of the most unexpected or surprising collaborations?
Oh, wow. As far as collaboration goes, this project is a very large project at NASA. People, thousands of people working all around the country, as well as many international partners. And so while there is many forms of collaboration that I can think of, I'd say maybe the most surprising is the fact that it's going to launch outside of the U.S. It's going to launch on the European Space Agency is going to launch the James Webb Space Telescope on one of their rockets.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. So what for you has been the most interesting part of working on, this project, for the James Webb Space Telescope project?
It is such a phenomenal project. The science behind it, the new technology that was developed just for this mission in optics, and there's so many new technologies on this project. But also, this project is very, very different than other NASA missions. It's a completely different design for a spacecraft. It's a completely different design for a telescope. And so everything is new. It's never been done before. And so everything is kind of, I find everything interesting. I'd say the most interesting for me is that it will be able to see very, very old light that has been traveling across space for a very long time. Space is really big. And even though light is fast, it takes some time to travel. And so if something is very far away, it takes a very long time across space to get to the Earth, or get to somewhere near the Earth where the telescope can pick it up and see it. And therefore, it will be able to see things that happened a long, long time ago. As a matter of fact, part of the mission is to see things that happened so long ago that it was when the universe was still forming, the stars and galaxies. And so to be able to work on a machine that can see back in time, per se, is the most interesting for me.
That is, yeah, that's kind of a complicated thought for anybody that, maybe is hearing this for the first time, how that would work. So that's pretty exciting. And so sounds like there's a lot to learn from this whenever you guys were able to collect data. So
right, like, well, I'm sorry, Josh, let me just add that, for example, when you see the stars at night or see a solar eclipse, it takes light a little bit of time to actually get from where it started to the Earth. And so when you see an eclipse, that might have actually happened about 8 minutes in the past by the time it gets to your eyes. When you look at the stars at night, there's a chance that some of those stars aren't even there anymore, or some of the pictures that Hubble has picked up, I should say. So space, it's hard to really articulate how, or wrap your head around how big space is, but it does take some time, and that's basically how that works. Is we're not building a time machine, we're not going back in time, but we are seeing images from a long time ago.
So you mentioned the Hubble Space Telescope, which is kind of a telescope that people probably think is similar to the James Webb Space Telescope. And so what makes JWST different than Hubble?
Sure. So it's larger. The Hubble Space Telescope is about the size of a school bus, and James Webb Space Telescope is about the size of a tennis court, or a large jet airplane. It's more powerful. It has more powerful instruments. It can see deeper into space with more accuracy. It can probably the most significantly is that it sees things that Hubble can't see. Hubble was able to see visible light just like you and I can see with our eyes. And when we first got images back from Hubble, we were amazed at how much was out there that we never knew about, that it could see much further than we could previously see, but everything we see was in the visible light spectrum. And so it took pictures of exploding stars or stardust, things called nebulas, which looks like a cloud of stardust, and these were beautiful images. But then scientists thought, well, what's behind that? What's even further? How can we see further? And the kind of the reality is that if we ever want to travel across space, the technology, it will take us a very long time to go very far at all with our current technology. Even at the speed of light, you might have heard the term light years, and a lot of the stars and galaxies that we take pictures of are potentially thousands of light years away. So it would be very hard to it might be a long time before we develop the technology to travel across space very fast. However, with a telescope, we can get there very quickly in the terms of seeing what is out there. And so a telescope allows us to, in a sense, travel across space very fast and see things we've never seen before without leaving the Earth. So That so the James Webb Space Telescope will be able to see in the infrared spectrum. It'll see much further than Hubble, and that's probably the biggest factor that makes it different than Hubble.
I think I'm starting to understand this a little bit more. And you say the term light years, and thinking about what you were describing about how we see things in space. So what a light year then means, like an object that's 240 light years from Earth. That means that we're seeing it as if it was, happening 240 years ago. Is that right?
Right. That's how fast light will travel in 1 year. Light travels so fast that instead of measuring it in miles per hour or kilometers per hour, we measure it in light years, and it's kind of hard to fathom how big space is, but we're exploring places that are hundreds of thousands of light years away.
So cool. Okay, so next question is actually a little bit of a shift in topic, and it's going to be about software. And so this question's probably come from somebody that's aware that NASA IV&V here in Fairmont does software assurance for NASA missions. And so the question is, why is software important on a mission like JWST?
So, on a mission like JWST, everything has to go right. It has to work as expected, has to work right the first time. Unlike Hubble, and I guess this is one of the differences with Hubble, James Webb Space Telescope will be about 1 million miles away from Earth, and that's where it's going to be located. So one of the reasons is because it'll be in the Lagrange 2 point, which is a place where it can stay in a pretty stable orbit, relatively stable, and it can be primarily in the shadow of the Earth from the sun, so it's not getting it. Its sensors are not getting affected by the sun. So that point, the Lagrange 2 point, is too far. It's further than astronauts have ever traveled, and so if something is wrong, it would be very hard to fix. It would take a robotics mission that hasn't been done before. So everything has to work right the first time. There's a lot of emphasis on all the engineers to make sure that everything works. Software controls everything on the spacecraft. It also controls everything on the ground for mission control. So it's critical to the mission that the software works as expected. It works right, and we want to make sure, and that's IV&V, that the software does everything it needs to do, does it as we expect it to do it, and we also want to make sure that it doesn't do anything that we're not expecting. It doesn't do anything more than it's supposed to do. So what we do at NASA IV&V, we're ensuring that the software is designed and built and tested correctly, so that when it gets up into space, the mission is successful. And this is, I like to say it's very similar to if you were riding on a commercial airplane or even in an elevator. There's software that's controlling those systems, and you want to have that confidence when you're running an airplane or an elevator, that the software is going to do exactly what it's supposed to do, and it's not going to do anything it's not supposed to do. So that's why it's critical to this mission.
Okay, and so when you describe that, it all sounds very complicated, and a lot of things are going to have to work exactly right. So now I'm a little bit more anxious than I was before about the telescope mission. Next question, though, I think comes from a teacher, and they're asking a question for their students. They want to know, what kind of subjects should their students be learning if they want to do work at IV&V. If they, for example, if they want to do a mission like the James Webb Space Telescope mission, what subjects should they be learning to prepare for that?
I think that's a great question. Of course, at NASA, there's the science and technology, all of the STEM type subjects, science, technology, engineering, math, so forth, are important at NASA, and that's kind of expected. However, it might not be as understood that the skills that I use most every day are reading and writing and communication. And so while I have to rely on my engineering background, every day, most often I'm reading through all the plans for the project, for the design, trying to understand what's being built, what was supposed to be built, how it's being tested, how the code is being written. And without those really strong skills of reading and writing and also communication, it can be critical to the mission. And let me explain why. So software is built based on a bunch of engineers coming up with, I'll call it a wish list of things it's supposed to do. So we write down all the things that we want to do, we want the software to do, we expect the software to do, and that's our wish list, and those are called requirements. And these requirements tell the software designers, the coders, what to build. If there is any kind of mistake or confusion in the requirements, they might build the wrong thing, or they might leave something out. If they read the requirement and it means something a little bit different to them, the way they read it versus the way the person intended that wrote it, they could they could build the wrong thing. So it's and part of what we do at NASA IV&V is we identify some issues in the requirements, and then we look at how it was built and compare and make sure that the right thing was built. But those kind of skills, reading and writing and communication, are vital to the mission, because it could be the difference of something being left out in software or somebody building the wrong thing.
Very cool. Great answer. So thank you so much, Rich, for answering our questions. If there was anything that maybe you wanted to share that we didn't think to ask you, now would be a great time to do that. And if not, I just want to thank you so much for joining us and answering our questions and getting us all excited for something very historic that is about to happen.
Sure. No, thanks for having me. I think all of the questions have been great. Some thoughts I could probably leave you with is that maybe we didn't hit on as much as this telescope is very large. If you can imagine, like I was saying earlier, the size of a commercial jet airplane. And we have to fold it up and put it on the top of a rocket. And so some of the greatest engineering on this project, outside of the science and the instruments collecting those images, has gone into how do we fold it up, put it on a rocket, make sure that these delicate instruments can be shaken violently by one of the biggest rockets that we have available, and go up into space, be resilient enough to not be interrupted by that, not be damaged by that, and then unfold in the right sequence at the right time, exactly as intended, and turn it on for the first time, bring it to life, and start preparing the sensor. They call it commissioning the instruments, the software, and getting it ready for science. So it's a it's really a very big engineering challenge. There's so many reasons just like that that have been kind of the drivers of why it's taken this long for us to be able to launch. Um, but but that has also been some of the challenges I think are some of the most interesting to appreciate how big of a mission this is, and and you know engineers from around the world, from around our country, coming together to figure out how are we going to do this. And so when this launches, there are so many things that have to go right, and there's so many things that could be what we call a single point of failure. One thing that has to go right, that would be mission ending if it doesn't. And so that's one reason why I love working at NASA, is because it's we're doing things that that haven't been done before, and there is risk in that. And without risk, we might not have breakthroughs and be able to really expand on our limits of what we can learn and grow and design. So, um, so everything has to go right. It's risky, but along the way, we've already learned so much just by um, having this mission in the field of optics and science and technology and communications, and so many intangible benefits of all. James Webb Space Telescope has already given back to the community, to the public, even in medical fields and so forth, that I think it's already a success. At the same time, I can't wait for this to go up, and just wishing for the best, and appreciating the hundreds of thousands of things that have to go just right.
Rich, thank you so much. And for those of you watching, in the description of this video, we're going to have some activities. So if you are looking for something to do to celebrate the launch, check there. We're also going to have a link to the launch where you could watch live. So you might want to bookmark that link as well, and stay tuned.